Okay, hi, good evening, everybody. So can you turn on your videos? All right, so it has been for a while. So during the yep, winter break and then some recent, wildfires, and I wonder, if everybody is fine. Anybody was, serious, impacted by the fire? Not really? Okay.
We had to evacuate for a little bit, but other than that, not much happened. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mm. So which area?
I live in the La Crescenta, La Cañada
Mm.
area. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, so, well, actually, this wildfire was really serious, and then, yeah, many and the U.S. faculty members, and then, yeah, they lost, their houses, and of course, lots of people, they were evacuated. Yep, I think this is one of, kind of once in a lifetime event, but unfortunately, yep, so it was so big, and I hope, everybody's fine. All right. So, and then, well, yeah, the reason why, we are meeting today is, yeah, the final presentation. So I believe that, you have been working on your project, during the, past months. So I think, it's time to, present to your work and then, yep, finish it. So, yeah, who want to start first?
We can go first.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'll be sharing my screen.
Sure.
Hopefully it works. Yeah. Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So Diana, once you're ready, you can start.
Race as a factor in natality. Continue. For this research project, we gathered our data from CDC, the US Census, and the UN. We concentrated on 3 East Asian countries, which are Korea, Japan, and China. And natality is just the ratio of number of births to the size of the population. We utilized Python, Pandas, Matplot library, scikit-learn, and SciPy. And we also utilized Gaussian filter while making the graphs. We hypothesized that the data on the US citizens' natality will be closer to demographic trends of the country of origin compared to the US national averages. In the previous project, we attempted to compare and contrast the natality trends among Asian Americans and individuals in their respective mother countries. But this time we'll first determine whether Asian Americans are more similar to their mother countries or to American. And second, we'll explain the demographics of natality in each country. And lastly, we'll validate the data collected from the previous projects. We analyzed 3 key factors that are related to natality, which are crude birth rate, the total fertility rate, and the mean age of childbearing mothers.
Our first comparison was based on the calculation of crude birth rates of Asian mother countries, Asian Americans, and America. Crude birth rate, by definition, is the annual number of live births per thousand population computed as a ratio. Our group calculated the CBR by first obtaining the annual values of Korea, Japan, China, and the United States directly from the UN dataset. And for East Asian subpopulations within the US, we consolidated multiple data sources, including the CDC natality dataset, to estimate the CBR for each subgroup, which provided the total number of births to mothers of each respective race from 2012 to 2022. Lastly, we obtained the annual total population data for each racial group in the US from the US Census American Community Survey. Using these data, the CBR was calculated using the formula CBR equals number of births in the population divided by total population times 1,000. Accuracy and clarity was improved by applying one-dimensional Gaussian filter to smooth the calculated values. Finally, we graphed the CBR over the years for East Asian Americans, comparing and analyzing the trends to those of their native countries as well as the overall US population. The following graph shows the comparison of CBR of Japanese and Japanese Americans. According to the graph, in 2012, Japan's CBR was 8.108, while Japanese Americans had a rate of 8.420. And by 2022, Japan's CBR had dropped to 6.293, and Japanese Americans' rate has decreased to 6.89. This suggests that the Japanese American population is following a demographic trajectory closely aligned with Japan, which is likely influenced by similar cultural, economic, and societal factors contributing to their low birth rates. This trend supports our hypothesis as it highlights the close correlation between the birth rate trends in Japan and its diaspora in the United States. The following two graphs shows the comparison of CBR of Chinese and Chinese Americans and Korean and Korean Americans. This is the China one, and the next slide is for Koreans. Both graphs for Korea and China reveal that the Asian Americans for these countries tend to align between the trends of their mother countries and the US. Notably, the US has a higher CBR, while China and Korea portray lower CBRs. This pattern suggests that all three populations are moving in a similar demographic direction as expected, given that they are all in the same stage of demographic transition, stage 4.
Okay, so I will be sharing the next key factor, which is the mean age of childbearing. So to put this in simple terms, it's the average age at which women in a population can give birth. So I'm going to move on to the first graph, which is for China. So if we look at this graph, it's pretty interesting and it's kind of different than what we thought. So after maintaining a pretty high average maternal age of 30 from 1950 to 1990, the figure shows a steep decline till 1990. We can see that this aligns with the historical fact of the one child policy, which was enacted in 1974. And then we see that after a rebound, China ended at an average of 29 in 2022, with America slightly higher at 29.868. What's even more surprising is that Chinese Americans are way above both countries at nearly 34 years old in 2022. Finally, this suggests that there is a huge divergence in Chinese Americans and mean age of childbearing, which can definitely be caused by confounding and external variables. So next, we'll be moving on to Japan. So over the years, it is pretty evident that the slopes of Japan and America show very similar trends. And again, since 2012, in the blue line, we can see that Japanese Americans surpassed both their mother country and America to have a maternal age of 35, whilst Japan stays at 31 and America at 29. So this trend actually follows through Korean Americans as after a decline in 1985, Korean mothers have shown a consistent trend toward later childbirth. Once again, Korean Americans exceed both Koreans and their fellow Americans in a very late childbearing age of 35, which ties with Japan for the highest average age of childbearing. So through this, we can conclude that whether this alignment with ethnical trends are conscious or subconscious, there is definitely a correlation between all of them.
Okay, our last measure will be total fertility rates. So for this comparison, we looked at the UN dataset for Korea, Japan, China, and the United States. And when it came to the East Asian subpopulations in the United States, we used the US Census American Community Survey once again to approximate the TFR for each subpopulation. And so the definition of total fertility rate is the total number of children that would be born to each woman if she were to live to the end of her childbearing years and give birth to children in alignment with the prevailing age-specific fertility rates. And so our calculations were done by getting the sum of the women aged 15 to 50 years who had a birth in the past 12 months divided by the total number of women aged 15 to 50 times 35. We then smoothed out our calculations once again using the one-dimensional Gaussian filter and graphed and calculated the TFR throughout the years for East Asian Americans as compared to that of the native country and the United States as a whole. As we can see in all three graphs, it's evident that there are many swings in the data throughout the years, but in general, the number of children born to each mother has gone down significantly. This was something we expected, but um, because we all knew that these countries were in the later stages of the demographic transition. But what surprised us the most was that every single Asian American population had total fertility rates that were actually closer to the US according to our similarity test rather than to their home countries. For our cosine similarity test, each East Asian American population showed a 0.999 similarity with the American population. And even the raw numbers themselves showed a surprising similarity to the American data, especially for 2022. As you can see, the TFR for um, the United States as a whole in 2022 was about 1.66, while the TFR for Korean Americans in 2022 was 1.4, um, compared to 1.2 of Korea. And you can see that the TFR of China was 1.02 as opposed to the TFR of Chinese Americans, which is 1.4. And lastly, the TFR of Japan, which was 1.2, as opposed to the TFR of Japanese Americans, which was 1.6. Um, so the fact that the total fertility rate for Korean, Japanese, and Chinese people in America for 2022 was less than that of the overall American rate shows that some correlation remains, but it appears that we still see some correlation in the total fertility rates to those of the home countries. Um, but the downward trends for the East Asian countries are much more drastic than found in the United States, where they seem to be more stable. So this creates an interesting pattern as the fertility rates were noticeably smaller for the East Asian Americans than those of the Americans overall, indicating trends that match the home countries. However, the fluctuations and changes in the rates were remarkably similar to those of Americans, which shows us that both geographic and cultural influences can have an effect on birth trends.
So the next slide shows just some of the confounding variables that could have been part of our experiment. So our hypothesis was saying that a lot of this is because of their ethnicity and the home country and what they believe in culturally. But there are stuff like socioeconomic statuses, education, healthcare, any cultural practices, and of course geographic location, plus the historical context of the home country that can definitely influence the natality rates of any of these Asian Americans.
So, in conclusion, for our project, instead of observing the stark contrasts, we instead identified notable similarities in the patterns of the population and natality. And so this alignment underscores that the shared demographic challenges and trends, like the declining birth rates, the aging populations, even though there are confounding variables such as cultural and socioeconomic factors, the similarities between America and mother countries make it so that, in general, the Asian American population aligns with the same demographics as um, the years get more recent with the home countries. And while working on this project, we learned a lot more about our own mother country, Korea, and we hope to inform others and leave them with a better understanding and interest with their mother countries as well. And that's it for our presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So for the conclusion, and then well, you don't have any, the sentences. You just yeah.
So we have it in our article. We just felt like it was kind of too much to put on one slide. So if you want, we can show you our article just so that you can read through it a little bit. Would you like that?
No, so that's okay. But well, so anyhow, and then yeah, okay, that's fine. All right. So it's really interesting. So, mm, some part and then the trend, the correlation it follows in other country, and then in some sense, and then it's just the American trend. Am I
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the past in a trend and then the recent trend is quite different.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
all right. So, well, then in the article, then what do you want to emphasize? Because you have lots of numbers and lots of trends. So, what can be the main the claim you want to say?
I think what we want, Andrew kind of said this at the very end, but what we really want from people to like get from this article is just kind of have like a better understanding of like what their mother countries can influence themselves. As for us, we are Korean Americans, so knowing about the culture and knowing about the different demographic trends in Korea can shape us who we are, even in America. So I think that's something big that I like would like the audience to take away. But I know what you mean by like you like we want something like specific for them to take away. So I think what stood out to me the most is just how like because all four of these countries are in the stage 4 or 5 of the demographic transition model, they show very similar alignments, which we actually didn't really expect because from what like I've known through my life and educated, I always thought that, oh, like the Asian countries are like having way less births or like almost like negative births right now or something like that. But from the data that we collected, it seems that America is not so far off. So I think just like emphasizing the what we thought was actually incorrect, and because of our data, we can see that actually America is not too far off of these Asian countries. And I think that would be something that we can emphasize.
Yeah, so the Americans birth rate and then is dropping significantly recently. Yeah, but the only reason the American population is maintaining some certain level is all those immigrants.
Right, for sure.
That aspect is quite important. And then
Mhm.
also, I think some ethnic groups, and then still their birth rate is relatively high.
Right.
Yeah, so for example, Hispanic populations, and then also in some parts in the Midwest. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Okay. Mhm. I'll definitely think
And,
about putting that
uh,
as like yes.
mhm. And I have some couple of point yeah in your slide and the presentation.
Hmm.
And then even though, well, our final goal is article and then this presentation by itself, and then it's a kind of, the independent, the things. So,
Yes.
uh, yeah, you introduced lots of graphs, but, not much the sentences. So
Uh-huh.
the good presentation, and then yeah, even though you are saying that, and then you need to, write some important the sentences.
Okay.
So definitely conclusion and some other. Yep.
Mhm. Okay. I'll definitely like we'll fix this like in the next coming week and then I'll probably send
Mm,
it to
yeah. And then also, some graph, the, y-axis, the scale is different. So can you
you. Mhm.
go back and then can you show the comparison between Japan, Korea, and China?
I will try to go back to that right now.
Mhm.
This one, this is what you wanted?
Yeah, something like this. And then, so basically the green line, it should be identical one, right? That's Americans.
Yes.
Yeah, but the y-axis, the scale is different, and then it looks all different, the data.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Mhm. So when you have the same scale on the y-axis, and then
Hmm.
even we can compare between Korean and Korean, Chinese, and then Japanese.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very interesting. There are lots of fluctuation.
Hmm.
Mm. So for example, uh, China, yep, there is a big sharp drop and then increase in around what 1960, right?
Yeah, I believe that might be just a data problem with I think the Cultural Revolution was happening around that time, so it might be a problem with the data itself. Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking when I looked at that.
Okay. So because of the Cultural Revolution, maybe the data collection was not accurate, maybe when
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
it. Interesting. And then, well, Japanese data, it also have some sharp drops in the middle of the 60s, right? Yeah, but anyhow, yeah. And then also, can you go back a couple more slides?
Yeah, just let me know when to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. And then, well, here and then you just say that visually, and then you just describe that, yep, the recently the Korean Americans and they are following more close to Korea or more close to America, something like this, right? Not just this one, but also some other graphs.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, the visual inspection makes sense, but at the same time, you have some similarity scores there. Okay. Okay. All right. So, yeah, yeah, you visually, inference that the correlation, and at the same time, you provide some kind of scientific analysis result that can be cosine similarity or some other numbers, right?
Yes, yeah, I believe so. I think that's right.
Okay. Okay. Yep. I think, well, mm, it can be interesting. So now and then, well, the remaining work is, yep, uh, writing, complete the article based
Okay,
on
yeah.
the claim.
We're basically almost done with the article. I just think we need to put what you emphasized today about having like what should we like what direction we should take it and what we want the readers to take away. So we'll definitely implement that into it and then finish.
Yeah, don't try to too much extrapolate your result to
Yeah,
more general cultural things,
for
because
sure. Yeah.
anyhow this one is all about the birth, right? So you can mention some cultural or economical, yeah, economical growth, and then yep, that kind of thing is pretty much related. But other than that, too much generalization to cultural things, then it's a little bit too much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good job. And then the next.
Should I share my screen for the presentation?
Mm.
So for our presentation, we are going over theft trends in Los Angeles in the time frame of 2010 to 2023 with me, Stella, John, Henry, and Ray.
This is a line graph showing the total number of victims across different age groups, and we observed a significant increase in the number of victims around the late 20s. There were noticeable spikes around ages 35 and 50, but we found no meaningful correlations or significance with these sudden increases. Our initial hypothesis that older individuals are more likely to be robbed was disproven, as the number of victims declined with increasing age. This is a graph highlighting key trends in burglary and theft victim demographics over the years. And between 2018 and 2023, we found some patterns. First, the most common age for burglary victims was between 35 and 40. Secondly, in 2018, there was a significant increase in burglary victims aged 50, standing out compared to other years. Lastly, by 2023, the most common age of burglary victims dropped significantly, falling below 25. And robbery victims displayed a consistent trend, with most of the common age remaining at or below 25 throughout the years. And for grand theft from motor vehicle, 2014 saw a notable shift, with the most common age of victims rising above 45. All other theft types exhibited consistency and victim age patterns over time. The analysis of this graph revealed distinct patterns in the age of victims for different types of crimes. First of all, younger individuals were more likely to be victims of robbery compared to other types of theft. Additionally, motor vehicle theft and general theft most commonly affected individuals around the age of 40. We analyzed that the people around the age of 40 had more had cars. And finally, there was a contrast shown between burglary and robbery. Older people were more significantly prone to burglary, while younger individuals were more frequent victims of robbery. Over the years, we see a steady increase in the average age of victims, reflecting a trend throughout the data. Between 2015 and 2019, however, there is a noticeable flat period where the average age remains relatively consistent, showing little variation during those years. And in 2019, a significant shift occurred as a average age of theft victims experienced a fairly large increase.
This bar graph shows the total theft counts for certain races. In the graph, the data is skewed due to the difference of population among races. The percentage of the population mostly consisting of Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, or white races. Races such as Hispanic, Latino, and Mexican mostly reside in areas with high crime rates, which explain these races having the highest theft counts. White people predominantly live in wealthier areas, which cause them to be more targeted to theft, which explains the high theft count. This bar graph shows the percentage of total theft each race are victims of. Hispanic, Latino, and Mexican accounts for the highest percentages of total theft cases. Races such as Filipino and Korean have low contribution rates for theft counts compared to other groups. Cambodian, Guamanian, Samoanian, and Laotian have contributions listed as either under 0.01 or nearly non-existent.
The next few graphs are based on the gender of the victims, and in petty theft, males experience much higher rates of petty theft than females, and we think that this might be because of social behavior, public exposure, reporting bias, and cultural perceptions of vulnerability around the gender roles. And in grand theft, males still experience a much more significant amount of victimization. And this might be because of ownership of higher value items, risk-taking, employment patterns, and higher exposure. And in petty shoplifting, we see that males have an enormous difference in enormous difference in shoplifting petty theft, which might be because of their different shopping habits. They might go more late, and vigilance differences, and the places they go and what time they go. And in grand theft shoplifting, males again experience much higher victimization and are and this might be because of the types of goods that thieves target and societal gender norms. And for theft from motor vehicles, parking pattern men are significantly more likely to be victims of petty theft from vehicles than women. And this might be because of parking patterns, behavior differences, and types of the vehicles driven. And for grand theft from motor vehicles, males experience a much larger portion of victims due to basically the same reasons as listed before. In this graph, we have a comparison for all the theft types for each gender, and each type of theft shown, males have a much higher victim count, and plain theft has the most crimes in both genders. Shoplifting has the greatest differences between males and female victim rates, and plain and grand theft from motor vehicles are almost equal in number.
In the following graphs, we will analyze theft trends across different geographical areas. A geographical area corresponds to the area served by one of the 21 community police stations. Each area is named after a local landmark or community that the station serves. For example, the police station at 77th Street is responsible for geographical area 77th Street. This graph reveals that the Pacific geographical area has the highest theft count compared to other areas. Notably, there are no significant spikes or drops in the theft counts across the different areas. Upon closer inspection, we find that the Pacific area includes the Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, which likely accounts for its high theft count, despite having a smaller population compared to other areas. LAX's large volume of visitors could contribute to the increased theft occurrences. This heat map highlights the top 5 geographical areas with the highest theft counts. One clear trend observed in this map is the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, as most areas experienced a noticeable decline in theft during 2020 when the pandemic was at its peak. The restrictions and lockdowns during this time likely discouraged criminal activity across the board. After 2020, as the situation improved, theft counts began to rise again, indicating a return to pre-pandemic levels of crime.
Now we have some of the most common crimes, and we show the most areas that are most commonly filled with crime, and then found the theft distribution of them. For example, in the Pacific, we can see that robbery takes up a significantly smaller portion of the total crime, but burglary and plain theft has a much larger portion, also with grand theft. In the Southwest, we can see that plain theft takes up an even larger portion, and robbery also takes up a larger portion than before, while the other area crimes seem to have a similar portion. In Hollywood, we can see that robbery again does not contribute much to the total crime, but petty plain theft and burglary still take up regularly large portions. But petty motor vehicle theft is a bit more common than before. Moving on, we have temporal patterns of theft. We can see in this graph that from 2010 to 2018, there has been a steady increase in theft counts, and especially in 2015, there's a significant rise. But likely due to the pandemic, in 2020, theft counts dropped dramatically, possibly due to lockdowns and those kind of things. Afterwards, there is a post pandemic rebound, which leads it to have even higher theft counts than before. Looking at the theft counts in each month for the years, we can see that there is a suspicious February drop where it seems that February has a lot less crimes compared to the other months. And however, in December, around the end of the year, it seems that crimes start to rise up again. We can also see that 2015 and 2016 seemingly have higher theft counts than the other years. For the other years, we still see the February drop and the December rise. But some other noticeable differences is that we can see how the 2020 pandemic caused the crime rates to lower, and then afterwards they started rising even higher in areas like 2023. This shows some of the analysis I went over. That's our presentation.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I want to put, some comment on your presentation. Yeah, the first, and then without any, background information, and you just started, to report your some result. Yeah, so again, you need to remember that this kind of presentation should be independent kind of, information dissemination. So you need to explain, what is the background, what is the problem, and what kind of data you used, and you need to provide, all those. Even I, forgot a lot of things, so maybe I don't remember, what kind of data you used and how much data you used. So please provide, such kind of motivation or background information, and then also in any kind of data analysis, and then you need to explain the data. So what is the source of the data, and then how much data you used. So without explaining the data set itself, and then people don't know in what scale you perform the analysis. So always, explaining the data set itself is quite important. And then, well, even the definition of theft, you better introduce, that definition. So it can be a common sense, but well, maybe different people don't understand the differentiation of, the theft types. All right. And yeah, some graphs, you mainly use some line graph, right? Then some graphs, is pretty complex. It's somewhat difficult to understand what is going on. The only difference is color coding, and the matching color coding, and then the number of years or some specific, data items. Well, we don't know. The readers has no idea for the kind of matching. So probably you may find some alternative way to present those numbers. Sometimes, simple bar graph is better than line graph. Okay. And then there are many different way to, present, the result using various kind of, the graphs. So not just, the bar graph or line graph, and there can be tons of different way, especially these days. And then we have lots of good tools, and then using, those good tools, and then, yep, you can visualize the results, better. And again, in data analysis, the visualization is extremely important. And then another point, I want to say is, yep, you plainly, describe the results. But in any kind of, presentation or the writing articles, and you need to focus on some specific, the parts. So for example, among all these results, what is the most important? Well, what is the most interesting, the result? Can you pick, one or two? Yeah. In any kind of, the presentation, especially in data science, and if you just list your findings without any emphasis, then people don't know what is the point. People are not really interested in all the details. Okay. So even though you perform lots of, work, and maybe you want to show that, oh, I did, so many things. Yeah, but well, always, you need to focus on what is the most important thing. and then just delivering the most important things, maybe just several of them, more effectively to the audience. And that is the most important thing. And people are interested in your analysis, and people are interested in your article, and they want to read some more details. All right. And then in order to grab the reader's attention, then definitely you need to present the most interesting thing or some kind of shocking, whatever it is, right? Or something unexpected things, and then you need to deliver such a things clearly. So, yeah, again, yeah, what can be the most important thing you want to present in the article? Because you have so many different analysis result. Don't know yet?
Uh, yeah, we still have a little bit of yet to really look into the most interesting graphs we had, but
Mhm.
I think our most interesting graphs are probably the ones about area of a victim crime rate, like the thermal graph of um like which places are increasing, decreasing in crime, especially since we can see a clear decrease in some places like 77th Street and Southwest, whereas places like Pacific are clearly increasing dramatically.
Yeah, so actually this is very interesting because around the pandemic, and then the trend has been reversed.
Right.
So yeah, this is very interesting. Why this kind of thing happens?
And then I don't know if it's like incredibly interesting, but in the next graph, I think the one with the different years, sorry, not this one, the 10 like line graphs or something. Yes, this one. I feel like this one has multiple trends that you can analyze here, like the February dip.
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
February dip, and then yeah, as you mentioned that February has 2 or 3 days shorter.
yeah,
It means, and then the difference, yeah, about 400, 300 difference.
right.
Then so maybe you can present this as a kind of daily kind count rather than monthly count.
All right.
Then probably you can have some less fluctuating the lines.
Okay,
So for example, May and then July definitely is more. Some months are
right,
simply the 31 days. Yeah.
right. And then would you say so overall for a presentation, we should fix up our visualization because it's hard to understand
Yeah,
to,
visualization definitely there are some better ways. Yeah.
right. And then would you say, and then to emphasize certain parts, like which our most important things are.
Mhm.
And then what was the last thing?
So, yeah, for example, you have some graph, mm, before pandemic and after pandemic, right?
Mhm.
Can I see that? Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, I passed it.
Mhm. So this is for the overall count, right? Including everything.
Yeah, this is the
For different theft types, can you generate the similar the lines?
yeah, I think yeah we could have done that.
So then, yeah, you can check the overallly, and then after pandemic, and then the crime count increased dramatically, right? But when you consider that, yep, using some different theft types, then maybe some theft type is even more, you know, increased further. Well, some are pretty much similar to the past, right?
Yeah.
So you also, investigate. There is just some, issues in Los Angeles, and then now and then, well, it's reversed. But in the past several years, the theft, below $900, and then, yep, they are not really, mm, arresting or, punishing that kind of things. So that's why, the teenagers, and they are doing some kind of mob, kind of thefting, something like that. So maybe that can be one cause, right? So then if you draw some graph for that kind of, theft, if that is increased, way more than others, then we can explain the kind of, the changes using that specific, law.
Okay.
So I think, the most interesting thing is, overall trend, and then which theft is following this trend, and then, well, in some certain district, and the trend has been reversed. Before pandemic, more crimes, but after pandemic, less, or vice versa. And those things are maybe something not really, intuitive, but the data shows, yep, the results. So maybe people are always, interested in some unexpected, findings. Okay, so focusing on just, several the points, and yeah, you can focus on, and then you can make some kind of, the conclusions. So overall, the theft crime has been increased significantly, but during the pandemic, it decreased significantly. So that is everybody can expect. But well, in some areas, and then well, the trend is reversed. That is something, unexpected one. And even though you cannot explain that, just reporting, that kind of trend itself gonna be interesting. And then depending on different theft types, and then we can discuss the overall trend is all similar or it's different. Is it okay?
Yeah, thank you.
So overall, and then which theft is the most common?
The most common would be petty, I believe. Petty theft, yeah.
So, how much difference, is way more than other types or just slightly more?
Let me check. I think
And you have some graph, right?
yes.
It does depend on the area, but
Yeah, so,
usually,
I mean, overall, yeah.
Yeah, overall it's petty theft.
Okay. So, uh, so this is for the entire period.
Yes.
Okay. And then maybe in the, well, if you think, the petty theft is the most common one, and maybe you can draw some kind of temporal changes of only petty theft. If
And this is
that kind,
to compare the overall trend to the most popular, maybe? Is that okay?
So I just want to know, and then, well, this petty theft, it has been always, kind of high, or it just recently is way higher than before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, because, petty theft is the least significant crime. Am I right?
Yes, it is.
yeah.
I see.
Do you think it would be a good idea to compare it to maybe something like burglary or robbery, because those two I feel are much more
Serious
serious crimes than petty theft, and they
But
represent a
that's
large portion.
another way, and then you just identify what is the most common crime type, and then what is the most serious. Even though the percentage is small, the consequence is really serious, right?
Yes. Okay.
And then maybe you can just focusing on the trend of these two. That also quite kind of interesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, always in the news, and they are saying that, oh, there's some kind of shoplifting, and then crime mob and something like that. That is the news. But another news is, there's some kind of murder case, and then armed robbery, and then there's always news about that, right?
Right.
But just simple motor vehicle stolen, there's no such news. And so just think about people's interest,
Okay.
and then maybe you can provide some results such that people may get some attention.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. So then, please, update to your slide, even though nobody is checking that, but well, this is a kind of, your own, the document, your own record. All right. So make it more complete, and then it's always desirable. And then when you have, the article draft, and please, circulate, and then we can check. Okay. All right. So do you have any questions today? Okay. So then, just, look at your cameras, and then let's take some kind of group photo. All right. All right. So everybody smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you so much. All right. And then from now on, and then we can communicate through emails. Thank you so much for participating in this project, and hope you learned something. All right.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Good night.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.